Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing good. It's been a good week. How about you?
I'm good. I am really excited that we are at the climax of this book. Like, we're almost done.
Yeah, we are.
It's crazy. So before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we're going to be discussing chapters 44 and 45 of The Great Hunt, where everything converges in Falme and Rand faces off against a real Blademaster. Chapter 44 is called Five Will Ride Forth, and the icon is the Flame of Tarvalon.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Perrin, Mat, and Huron are scouting a local village for signs of Fane or the Horn. Huron picks up his scent at last, but white cloaks enter the village and the three hightail it out of there. Perrin contacts the wolves to make sure that they weren't followed, and luckily they weren't. They decide to follow Fane's trail a little bit before reporting back to Ingtar. Meanwhile, Joffrey Bornhold racks his brain to figure out why the big guy running out of the village looks so familiar, and he remembers when Perrin was his prisoner. He had managed to sneak 1,000 men across Tommen Head without raising alarm, though he had seen some skirmishes with the Seanchan. After seeing that they fight with Aes Sedai, he no longer feels that he's going to survive this campaign. He calls Byre to him and tells him that when he battles the Seanchan, he doesn't want Byre there. He wants Byre to watch from a distance and carry word of what happens. Byre is not pleased, but agrees to follow orders. He blusters about the Tarvalon witches and says that he will give Byre a letter to bring to Pedron Nile that explains everything that they've learned about the Seanchan and how they were used and betrayed by the questioners. He tells Byre that he thinks he saw the dark friend, Perrin of the Two Rivers, and they need to get a move on before he can betray them to the Seanchan. They do not notice a huge winged shape circling far above their heads. Rand is working the sword forms, anxiously waiting for Perrin, Mat, and Huron to return. They are late, and the men are tense. Ingtar sees Rand practice Huron waiting in the rushes and tells him it's a bad move because it leaves him too open and invites a sword in the ribs. It would be impossible to resist stabbing someone who came at him so openly, even if it meant getting stabbed himself. Remember that for later. The three returned, and Huron tells them that he picked up Fane's trail. They followed it almost all the way to Falme. Perrin tells them that they saw a bunch of white cloaks too. Ingtar expects Varen to say, "I told you so," but she waxes on about Tavarin and the pattern instead. It's time to make a plan. They decide that Ingtar, Huron, Rand, Mat, and Perrin will go, and Varen really pushes the Five Will Ride Forth prophecy. She opts to stay behind because of the Domine and cryptically warns Rand to watch the channeling because they might be able to sense him too. Not wanting to waste any more time, they decide to ride all night to get to Falme by sunrise the next morning.
One thing I like about how Robert Jordan opens up this chapter is that it makes me feel a sense of loss for the people of this town.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as Perrin looks around, he knows what's probably going to happen to these people because he's already seen it in other towns and villages that they've passed. Or maybe it's more inevitability than sadness. We get all of this in very few words, and it's just very well done.
Yeah.
Unlike Huron, I know exactly why the Seanchan burned all the village leaders with their families. Perrin reflected earlier that these towns and villages are all independent. That means that they're more likely to resist an occupying force because they're not used to answering to anyone but their leadership. Mm-hmm. So the best way to kill their ability to organize a resistance is kill the few leaders that they have, and anyone who may inherit their office. It's a really harsh and hardline approach, but it is effective as long as you have the might to back it up.
Yeah. We haven't mentioned Perrin and the White Cloaks since Eye of the World.
Oh, yeah.
But it's actually a pretty big plot point for the first several books. Perrin really struggles emotionally with the axe and how he killed those White Cloaks over killing Hopper.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's just guilt over killing people, but guilt that he chose the wolves over men. that might be part of why he struggles with the wolf brother thing so much. He was already caught up and taken over by the wolf instinct, and it made him a murderer, at least in his mind.
You know, I never thought of it that way, that he chose the wolves over men.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it in those terms either until this read-through. But I think that is part of it, is that when he got so enraged when they killed Hopper, he made the choice to join the wolves against other men. Granted, they were terrible men who were attacking him. And, you know, we already saw what happened afterwards. Like, I'm not saying the White Cloaks didn't deserve to die, but Perrin chose the wolves over his fellow humankind. And I think that, more than anything else, is what really is making him feel so guilty and so conflicted.
Or afraid, because if he's done it once, he can do it again. And what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Now, thanks for bringing that up. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. And we get a White Cloak POV, which means this chapter has the Evilness Trifecta: White Cloaks, Seanchan, and Fane.
Evil is right. We see that the villagers are already beaten down by the Seanchan. These people are showing all the signs of being victims, which makes Bornhald happy because he doesn't have to waste time making an example of anyone.
Yeah.
He orders that the villagers be locked up in the inn, and Bornhald thinks that they are so cowed that it should be 2 or 3 days before anyone has the courage to try to break free. He justifies it by thinking that he can't risk anyone alerting the Seanchan to his presence. But these people are afraid of the Seanchan.
Yeah.
They aren't going to go reporting to them for anything. This is just being unnecessarily cruel, victimizing people who have already been victimized.
Yeah. Ugh, White Cloak's got a White Cloak.
Yeah. So Bornhald had seen a few skirmishes with the Seanchan on his way through Toman Head. He lost half his men and encountered Domine. So now he thinks that the Aes Sedai are working with the Seanchan.
Yeah.
White Cloaks already think that Aes Sedai are dark friends, so this confirms it in his mind. He tells Byre to sit out of the fight because he's pretty sure he's going to die, and he needs to make sure that Pedro Nile, the Lord Captain Commander of the White Cloaks, knows what they've seen. He also wants to make sure that Nile knows how the questioners did them dirty and are up to some shady shit.
Because they are.
Yeah.
Geoffrey and Bornhold noticed Perrin and remembers who he is. Mm-hmm. He worries that Perrin, the Darkfriend from the Two Rivers, might bring word of them to the Seanchan. So this here is the moment where Child Byre, the psychopath we all love to hate, starts to connect Perrin as being responsible for Bornhold's death.
Yeah.
He's 100% wrong, but this is where it starts. Mm-hmm. We get this line: far above their heads, a huge winged shape circled unnoticed. So the first time I read this, I thought it was a drag car. Did you?
No, I did not actually, because I remembered a couple chapters ago, Nynaeve talking about the monsters with the coarse leather skin and scales, and saying how when she saw people riding the flying ones, it made her dizzy. So I was really hoping that the Seanchan had dragons. So I put all my eggs in that basket. I was like, dragons confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, we have a character named the Dragon Reborn. There's going to be dragons in this fantasy story
at some
point,
dragons.
right?
I really wanted dragons. Like, fantasy is not my wheelhouse, and I don't love sword and sorcery, like, fantasy stories most of the time. But dragons are really cool.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint.
It's fine. I mean, my headcanon is that they are dragons. Like, they can call them whatever they want to, but what is it, Raken and Toraken?
Yeah.
Whatever the flying ones are, those are dragons.
We move on to Rand in that group, and Ingtar is being super grumpy. Like, he criticizes Rand's choice of forms to practice, and then basically tells Varian he's sure she wants to say, I told you so, when they find that Fane is actually in Falme. And I love Varian's response. It's, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. That phrase is the perfect response when you want to be snarky, cryptic, or sound really intelligent, and Jordan gets a lot of mileage out of it.
He does. And yeah, I do think that a lot of the Aes Sedai use it to be low-key snarky.
Yeah, or the Aes Sedai version of a middle finger, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're finally going to Falme, and Varian is pushing the five will ride forth thing as much as she can without flat out stating it.
Yeah.
Ingtar, because he's so obsessed with the horn. Huron, to sniff out Fane.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, to sense the dagger. Rand, because this is the whole reason he's even here.
Right.
And Perrin, for reasons. I guess because he's Talrand and because Varen knows something about him that the rest of us don't. And then she stamps down on everyone else trying to go because 5 is the magic number and anything else is just silly. Like, to hear Varen tell it, if even one more person goes, then they will immediately be discovered. So 5 it is.
Yeah, I've always been a little confused about what Varen is doing in this chapter. Like, drawing in the dirt, other than being creepy for creepy's sake. I wonder if what she saw in her flickers behind the way that she handles the whole situation. She's put 3 Taveran in the group, and each of the 5 offer a special skill that they will need. But the way she reacts when Perrin and the others accept the mission, there's absolutely something that she knows that they do not. Mm-hmm. And Varen always knows. Do you think she's acting on knowledge from her flicker, or do you think there's something else going on here?
I think that she's trying to logic out the meaning of several prophecies at once and see how they work together. Like, part of it is what was written on the walls in Faldara. Part of it is the prophecy of the dragon that mentions that 5 will ride forth and 4 return. Above the watchers shall he proclaim himself bannered across the sky in fire. We saw Van Dien tell Moraine about this in chapter 22 of this book. And I think there's also a prophecy about the blacksmith and the axe or the hammer or something. She mentions it later when she sees Perrin in the 2 rivers.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But anyway, these connections are too dangerous to write down. So she's scrawling them in the dirt so she can scrub them out if someone comes near. And it's just a really cool bit of foreshadowing on Jordan's part to have the 5 spokes of the wheel and then one of them scrubbed out so that there's the broken wheel with only 4 spokes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked it. Then again, I also like it when Varen's super creepy, so there's that.
Yeah, I liked it too. It's just, I've always just kind of like, I guess I'm just not as smart as some people, because I read through this and I get confused. I'm like, what is she doing? And I kind of overthink it,
I mean, Jordan doesn't say what she's doing. This is all supposition, but I'm assuming that's what she's doing, is that we've had so much prophecy and stuff like that Varen's been musing over throughout the whole book. So I think that she's still trying to logic it out now that we're at the end. How do they work together and what's going to happen? But again, even though she writes in secret code, it's still too dangerous to write this stuff down.
True.
So, and harder to make the connections when it's in code. So writing stuff out in her cryptic little way in the dirt, and then, because Rand says she's writing stuff and then scrubbing it out and writing more stuff.
Right,
I think she's basically just making notes to herself, but in a temporary form. So if the wrong person walks up, she can just scrub it out. And no one ever sees a record of these connections.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my guess anyway.
That wraps up chapter 44. But before we get to chapter 45, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by vague prophecy and ominous foretelling. Knowing the future is great, unless the message is cryptic and garbled. Then it's anyone's guess if the father will kill the son or if the vampire with a soul will retire to Reseda. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, or so I've heard. Vague prophecies. Your guess is as good as mine.
Chapter 45 is called Blademaster, and the icon is the heron-marked sword.
In the early morning hours, the girls are ready with their plan to rescue Egwene. Nynaeve, Elaine, and Min lay a trap near an alleyway. When they spot a Soldam and Domine, they spring into action. Nynaeve focuses her anger on how vile the leashes are and grabs the power. Before the Soldam can react, she channels a whip-like flow into the collar and it springs open. The Domine is shocked for a second to be free of the collar, then turns around and punches the Soldam in the face before running off. The girls throw a bag over the Soldam's head and manhandle her through the alleyway and into an abandoned stable. Luckily, no one really notices due to the early hour and the habit of the Falmen to avert their eyes to any of the Shanshan. Once in the stable, the girls wrestle the Soldum out of her lightning bolt dress and bind and gag her. The plan is to use the dress and the Adam to pose as Domine and Soldum to get into Egwene. The dress fits Nynaeve best, so she has to play the part of Soldum and Elaine the Domine. Hoping to get more answers about how it works, Nynaeve snaps the collar around her prisoner's neck. Min warns that it's only supposed to work on those who can channel, but Nynaeve can feel the other woman in the corner of her mind. She experiments a little, and suddenly the former Soldum is writhing on the floor. Nynaeve quickly stops her experiment, but now they know the collars work on Soldum too. The woman tells them that her name is Seta, and she pleads with them to take the collar off. Nynaeve realizes that there is no way she could ever make Elaine wear the collar, so she changes the plan. She tells them that Seta will be their Domine, and she warns Seta that if they are caught, she'd make her curse the day she was born. Seta has no choice but to comply, and the four of them set off to free Egwene. The five rode forth to Falme, and are now making a stealthy entry. Huron leads them through the streets, crisscrossing back and forth, following Fane's trail, as Ingtar gets increasingly more irritated. Huron takes them to Turok's manor house, where they find a bunch of soldiers, Domine, and a few Grom. Suddenly, Mat senses the dagger, and they figure the horn is probably there too. Rand wants to stake the place out and then meet up with Varen to make a plan, but Ingtar won't hear of it. He is determined to have the horn by nightfall, and everything else be damned. He decides to sneak over the garden wall, and the others have no choice but to follow. Ingtar kills the only guard, and they manage to get inside the manor house. Mat leads the way to the dagger, and they find both that and the Horn of Valere. Yay! Their victory is short-lived, though, because Rand spots Egwene through one of the windows, and he sees that she's collared. Before he can rush off to save her, Turok enters with several soldiers. One of them reaches for the horn, and Mat cuts him with the dagger. The result is gruesome. A fight breaks out, and Rand is left to face Turok one-on-one. He's dismayed to see that Turok also has a heron on his sword. Rand has to face off against a real Blademaster, and he knows his only hope to survive is to embrace the void, but he is afraid of the temptation to channel. He tries fighting without the void and fails miserably. Turok is about to kill him, so he sucks it up and embraces the void, and all at once it's a whole new ballgame. He matches Turok blow for blow. Rand manages some fancy moves and is successful. He kills Turok, and in response, the servants kill themselves because Shanshan are weird. The others are also victorious, and it's time to get the hell out of Dodge. Rand wants to stay and help Egwene, but Ingtar is like, we have the horn, forget the girl. Rand says that he can't abandon her. Huron lets them know that guards are coming, and Ingtar tells Rand that he can't save Egwene if he stays and lets himself get killed. They run out and scramble back over the wall, with Rand swearing that he'll come back for her.
You made a reference in one of our Season 1 episodes to Nynaeve being worthy of the future Battle Queen of Malachor. Mm-hmm. So when she muses about her army here, it kind of called me back to that comment.
Yeah.
She may only have two, but that does not stop her from getting the job done.
Mm-hmm. I love that Nynaeve sees Min and Elaine getting antsy and showing signs of nerves, and she thinks, if they give us away, I'll thump both their heads. But then a moment later, she's thinking about how she plans to sacrifice herself so that they can escape if things go wrong.
Yeah.
Like, she told them to run and let them believe that she would too, when the reality is that she plans to draw the attention to herself while they get away. Yep. And one thing's for sure, she's not going to let the Shanshan take her alive. This stuff right here is why Nynaeve is my favorite. Big damn hero, I tell you what.
Ain't she just? I love how well thought out this plan is. While at the same time, how simple it is.
Yeah.
They have established secret signals, they've done recon for the last couple of days to figure out where to go, and they rely on how the Falmen look the other way when it comes to anything Shanshan. Mm-hmm. It was so well planned that when they escalate from snatch and grab to using the Soldum as a prisoner, they're able to adapt pretty easily. Mm-hmm. And we totally believe that Nynaeve is capable of pulling this off because of how well this was constructed and everything that led up to it. Jordan does a great job with these kind of scenes, and it's really fun to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I always laugh out loud when the Domine is freed, And she turns around and punches the Soldum in the face. And then Elaine shouts, "Good for you." It cracks me up, and I love the encouragement. Elaine's like, "Finally."
Yay. Yeah, the moment that they slapped a collar on Seta and Nynaeve realizes she can actually use it on her, it's such an important moment.
Yeah.
And the first time you read through this, it kind of flies by because it's Nynaeve's point of view, and she is so focused on her mission. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have time to think about the consequences and of what just happened. We spent a good amount of time talking about how the Shanshan society revolves around the idea that Domine are too dangerous not to be on a leash, and the Soldum are the only ones who can keep them in check. It's a big honor. And in this moment, we discover that the Soldum can also channel, which means that they are the same as the Domine. So the foundational principle of the entire Shanshan Empire, the core belief that that society is built on, is tragically flawed. This is huge.
Yeah, definitely. Nynaeve experiments with the collar a little bit and is disgusted by what she finds. Like she says, "I'll make you think I've had the hide off you," as a figure of speech. And then is horrified when she realizes Seta takes her literally because she knows that's what the Adam is for.
Right.
Seta is pleading with her to take the collar off, that she'll do anything. And Nynaeve has this incredible speech, and I have to read it. Quote, "As far as I am concerned, you are worse than a murderer, worse than a dark friend. I can't think of anything worse than you. The fact that I have to wear this thing on my wrist to be the same as you for even an hour sickens me. So if you think there is anything I'll balk at doing to you, think again. You don't want to be seen? Good. Neither do we. No one really looks at a Domine, though. As long as you keep your head down the way a leashed one is supposed to, no one will even notice you. But you had better do the best you can to make sure the rest of us aren't noticed either. If we are, you surely will be seen. And if that is not enough to hold you, I promise you, I'll make you curse the first kiss your mother ever gave your father. Do we understand each other?" So we talked about before how Nynaeve bluffs at being more confident than she is.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's bluffing at all in this moment.
No.
I think she means everything she's saying, and I believe every word.
Me too. Nynaeve's pissed.
Oh,
she
yeah.
is so beyond. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's so good. I love Nynaeve so much. Like, I realize that this whole book has just been a love letter to Nynaeve as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But, she's so good.
Yeah, she's awesome. I love the moment where Nynaeve asks Min and Elaine if they're ready, and Seta asks where they're going. Their responses make me laugh every time. Like, Elaine, future queen of Ondor, is all like, "Into the lion's den." And Min, the one who can see people's destiny, says, "To dance with the Dark One." And Nynaeve basically rolls her eyes and answers very straightforward because she is still super focused on the mission.
Yeah, she doesn't have time for that.
It's so telling for each character, and it brings a moment of levity to a pretty tense situation.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a real quick POV switch to Bail Doman. I guess to remind us that he's still there and waiting for the girls.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining because I love Bail Doman, and it's totally cool. He's really cool in this scene. But this is the shortest POV we've seen so far, so it's a little jarring.
Yeah, the end of this book, the switching is pretty rapid. It's different than what we've seen before.
Yeah, it is.
I thought it was a nice detail that Rand and the others didn't enter the city together as a group.
Yeah.
They spaced it out as not to draw attention. It's a small thing, but I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it's a good one. I don't have much to say about Rand and Co. entering the city. It's pretty straightforward, but I do find it funny that Rand thinks they look like villainous beggars with the way they're dressed.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of when you play an RPG like Fable or Diablo and you're wearing whatever low-level armor you can scrounge until you can afford real clothes or armor. So you have like mismatched pants and boots and shirts, all the things in random barrels that you smashed, but you always have a kick-butt sword that you picked up from a random NPC along the way, you know?
Yeah.
It really sucks to be Huron in this chapter. Not only does he have to smell the stench of Fane all over the town, but Ingtar is getting really testy about finding the horn.
Yeah.
Add that to the run-in they have with the Grom, and that he gets to watch everybody argue about what to do next, and it's not shaping up to be a great day for the guy.
Yeah, I feel so bad for Hurin when he sees the Grom. Like, he's obviously freaking out. But props to Rand for cutting that off at the head and reassuring him without a second thought.
Yeah, just...
Because, I mean, Rand is also internally freaking out. Like, they can't be here. I'm dreaming. There's no way. But, like, he's right there. It's like, don't even worry about it. That has nothing to do with us. Like, forget about him. And Hurin's like, I can do that, Lord Rand. Okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Rand is very much a lord in this last stretch of the book. He's stepping up to the responsibility, not even realizing it.
Yeah. Poor Hurin. I also feel bad for Matt. Like, as much as he bugs me, and I said I didn't care about the dagger, and he could just die already.
You did, yes.
His desperation when he sees the dagger is so sad.
Yeah.
It's like an addiction, and he's being physically compelled towards it. He can't help himself, and he's really hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help feel bad for him, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I just can't help it. Poor guy. So people in Randland need to start guarding their garden walls.
Yeah.
Both Rand and Matt get into the palace in Camelin by climbing a garden wall. Mm-hmm. And now the group is breaking into Turok's place the same way. This is why castles have moats. Like, if you can get in by just scaling a wall, then what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely. On the one hand, Ingtar going all commando, killing the guard, and leading the charge into an unknown building with no idea what's going on inside is really suicidal.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the dude is really badass to pull it off. He even ends up like clapping Matt's mouth shut when he's distracted by the serving girl. He is a man on a mission and will not suffer anyone to prevent him from completing it.
Yeah.
The way this chapter unfolds is just great in terms of suspense. They take a huge risk, and they are rewarded with finding the horn and the dagger. Rand sees Egwene across the street, so now they have to go get her out as well as the horn. And then in walks Turok. Then it really hits the fan when Matt cuts the guard with a dagger, and I'm just sitting here eating popcorn the whole time because I can't put the book down.
Yeah, Jordan's pretty good at endings.
Yeah.
I mean, the first couple endings of his books make no freaking sense, but they're
climax.
action-packed.
Yeah.
Like, they're really captivating. Confusing, but captivating. So when Rand sees Egwene, we get this gem from Matt. What are you talking about? Matt said. Egwene is safe in Tarvalon. I wish I were. Remember you said that, Matt, because it's going to turn around and bite you in the ass in the next book.
Yep. The moment Rand realizes that Turok is a Blademaster, and the only way he will be able to defeat him is to embrace the void, is such a great description of the struggle Rand has been having this whole book. If he embraces the void, he leaves himself open to the real possibility that he will channel. If he does not, he doesn't stand a chance to survive the fight against Turok. And when he does, everything changes. I want to point out that he beat the Blademaster using only the void and not the power. So from this point on, Rand has earned the right to carry a heron-marked blade fair and square.
Yeah, true. Very true.
When Matt points out how crazy the servants are for not doing anything during the fight, I'm 100% in agreement with him. This is just more really crazy, obsessive way that the Shanshan Empire works.
Yeah, it's weird. It's... well, whatever. I don't like the Shanshan. We need this.
Yeah.
So Ingtar is still thinking the horn can save him in this chapter. When they find the horn, Ingtar says, "By the light, I'm saved." Then, when Rand wants to stay to try and save Egwene, he calls Rand a fool and says, "We have what we came for, the Horn of Valair, the hope of salvation. What can one girl count, even if you love her, alongside the horn and what it stands for?" And Rand responds that if he abandoned Egwene to her fate, the horn couldn't save him. He says, "The Creator couldn't save me. I would damn myself." And this is where Ingtar's bubble bursts.
Yep.
He's still trying to grab the horn from Matt, but he's finally realizing that just handing the horn over or just finding the horn isn't enough.
Yeah.
He's been so obsessed, falling deeper and deeper into this mad desperation to find the horn, thinking it's the only thing that can save him. And now he sees that he's been wrong this whole time.
Yeah. It's really sad, actually. Mm-hmm. Ingtar is right to pull Rand away, though.
Yeah.
Charging into the fray with a bunch of trained soldiers is not a way to save Aegwyn. Running away with a dagger and the horn in their possession was the right move. And we end with Rand swearing that he'll come back to get her. This was such an action-packed chapter. I really liked it. Mm-hmm. That's it for chapters 44 and 45 of The Great Hunt. Join us next week for chapters 46 and 47, where all hell breaks loose and we reach the climax of the story.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so people can find us. You can tweet us at WhatPodThru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.